Welcome to the Marquis Masters podcast. I'm Ryan Estes, and today I'm joined by Dr. Cynthia Park of San Diego State University. Here's the problem. For decades, the system looked at first-generation students from humble backgrounds and saw one thing: deficits, gaps to fix, problems to solve. But what if the entire approach had it backwards? My guest spent 44 years proving that it did. Since 1983, she's built programs, launched an entire institute, and taught on 4 continents, all while walking 7 miles a day. They call her the Lioness, and you're about to find out exactly why. In this episode, you'll learn how to turn a so-called deficit into a superpower, why listening beats lecturing every single time, and the one reflective habit that quietly turns raw experience into wisdom. Educators, leaders, mentors, and anyone who's ever been underestimated, this one's for you. And are you hungry for more brilliant minds like Dr. Park? Head to marquiswhoswho.com, where the world's achievers go to be remembered and get lost in the little greatness. And if this conversation fires you up the way it fired me up, leave us a review and help the Lionesses roar carry a little farther. Now please enjoy my conversation with Dr. Cynthia Park. Dr. Cynthia Park, welcome to the Marquis Masters podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Fantastic. I'm really excited to talk to you. You've had such an illustrious career in education. I know I'm going to learn a bunch from this conversation, but when I was kind of digging into the research, one thing really stood out to me as an athlete, which is you walk 7 miles a day. Is that right?
Yes, but not recently. But yes, in the not too distant past, 7 miles a day. Now it's more like 5.
Wow, that's incredible. I was really inspired. I live in Denver, and I went and held signs for my wife and daughter. They did the Denver Marathon, and
Oh.
it was kind of a relay marathon. I didn't run it.
Mhm,
I was holding the sign saying good job. But I was so
mhm.
inspired. I started trying to walk and run, and I did a 2-mile run, and I cramped my calf so hard I had to take 4 weeks off.
Oh
So
no.
I
Oh no, you're
know.
supposed to you're supposed to do some work ahead of time before you go to run and doing that kind of stuff.
The work I did is,
Yeah,
yeah.
those calves, if they're not ready, but I'll tell you, the kind of walking that I have been doing since about 2000, and using a Fitbit and having competitions with my staff, and I would beat them all the time. And so that walking has really helped me to get rehab after major operations.
Yeah.
I could just jump out of the bed, well, not the last one, but jump out of the bed and walk around with no problem whatsoever. And so that really, I recommend it to everyone that the human was made for walking, so let's not be couch potatoes.
I
So
love it.
there we go.
I I love it. I wish I would have talked to you beforehand. The only prep I did was buy some cute shoes and some new shorts, and I just jumped out there, and my the cramps in my calf
In your
came to haunt me.
calf. Okay. So yeah, you're supposed to do stretching exercises.
Yeah.
Ha ha.
You know,
Now,
one. Oh, go
go
ahead. I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, so now I don't need to do a lot of stretching exercises because just walking around the house, I'll get enough stretch that I'll be able to just go out and, run down the hill and up the hill. So my running is not just, well, it's not really running, it's kind of jogging, but it is really to go up and down hills also. And then that's very good for the heart rate, so you can
You
get
bet.
that heart rate up. So yeah, so all of those things add to, the ability to keep going, and also the ability to kind of understand who you are as a human, your bipedal type organism, and walking around is what you're supposed to be doing and
Yeah.
not just sitting there. Okay, so the other thing that you get with a Fitbit that is that every uh, 10 minutes before the hour, it reminds you that you might want to stand up and walk around a little bit. And that's known in the literature to be very helpful to people in terms of all things, your mitochondria and how your little cells are working. So it all works together. And um, in the curriculum that I have done for upward bound programs and talent search programs and I had a health community program also, and a health careers program. uh, I always take the view that if we can put health at the center of our curriculum, that is going to guide everything else that we do. But it's also going to put the students in the center because it's their health we're talking about. So the whole notion in education that I have promulgated and that I profess is that when you do your curriculum, you take a look at health objectives first, and then you build around that. And if you do that, you will put the student at the center of your curriculum as well. So that's some of the philosophy that I've had in terms of the many, many programs that I have overseen and that I have led over the past 44 years.
I love that. I love how you said too, walking helps get to know yourself as a human. I found that when I'm on a nice walk, it really gets the creative juices going. Do you find that too?
Yes, and of course, a lot of people say they create in the shower, and I do that too. But there are times when you can just be alone, and some people do walk with a partner, but I like to walk alone, and that gives you that space, and particularly in doing it in the outdoors, which all year round, living in San Diego, you can do. And that's a lovely way to be able to be by yourself when you need to be by yourself. And so some people, always want people around, but I'm not one of those.
Yeah.
I really enjoy my time alone as well as being with other people. So that's that's what I would say about that. And
I, I think I'm a kindred spirit in that, you know. I do love people, but I like solitude, you know. I don't find myself being lonely when I'm by myself. What is it about solitude that is appealing to you?
well, it gives you time to reflect and also look back and use past experience to be reflexive about your experiences and how your experiences can help you to improve.
Yeah.
So I think that solitude is an important part of what we work with our student teachers to help them to understand that to become professional, it's very important that they adopt a, a way of, on a regular basis, reflecting on their experiences and then looking back and sort of extricating themselves from the experience itself and be reflexive over time about what it is that your experiences are telling you.
Hmm.
Because your experiences can help you to understand yourself. Uh, if you are able to reflect and also use a reflexive way of thinking about your past and how it informs what you're going to do tomorrow. So that's one of the things that I did when I prepared for this opportunity to talk to many, many of my students and others that are in my orbit, that they could get to understand that to be able to do something for 44 years and to continue to be passionate about it, it really requires that you have, first of all, a vision about what you want to do, and and who you are, And then, secondly of all, that you use that reflection and reflexive approach to make your experiences work for you. So many people don't do that. And so a lot of their experience goes to waste because they're not paying attention to it. So paying attention to your experiences, and particularly when things didn't go very well. I look back now at some of the things that I have written through this process of working with Marquis, and I see things that I did not see ever before by just having to write things down. So one of them was, for example, the first group that I was really responsible for when I got to San Diego State University that was going to go into teaching had a big party for me, but it was at my house, but they organized it. And they also had someone who knew how to play guitar within the group, and they serenaded me with En mi viejo San Juan, because I am born in Puerto Rico, not in San Juan, but in Puerto Rico. And so that's the song. That's kind of a signature song for people from Puerto Rico. So they serenaded me with that song, but they also brought me a lioness, a paper mache lioness that was that they got in Mexico. Okay, because in Mexico they make a lot of these paper mache animals. Well, they brought me a lioness. And that lioness stood by my hearth for years and years and years. And only in the reflexive moment of revisiting that did I understand what the lioness could mean really. And what the lioness meant really was they were telling me I was the lioness. And I was the one that was going to go forward, helping, and also not only helping, but fighting and protecting. So all of those things were things that I came to know as I've been going through this process and writing things down. I said, oh, the lioness. So now in terms of, I have written about a 10 chapter background on my life, and we're still working on it. I have to find all the pictures. So, and when I looked at that, when I actually put it together and thought about it reflexively, then I said, oh, that's what that lioness was all about. And it gave me an idea for when I write my memoir, my complete one, I might call it. And I might call it The Lioness at the Hearth. And that lioness stood by my fireplace for years and years and years. And I think it may be a metaphor for a lot of the things that have given me the energy to not only support my students and to direct them and to help them, but also to protect them. So when you have a protege, and I've mentored quite a few students who have become proteges, what it really means is that you protect. So you are knowing that people are learning. Now, when they learn, they make a lot of mistakes, as we all make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, then the reflection and reflexivity become even more important, because you want to be able to say, what happened here? And if I had known this before, what would have I done differently? Because that's what, Huck Finn said at the end of the book about Huck Finn. Huck Finn said at the very end, the last line was, well, if I'd have known that writing this book would be this much work, I wouldn't have started in the first place. Okay, that was Huck Finn. That's the line at the end. All right, so just give it to Mark Twain, for trying to capture that.
Yeah.
So Huck Finn, I think, is a really important book in the American canon of literature that, students should read.
I agree. What a beautiful story. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. And it made me think about what I know about lionesses, which probably
Yes.
comes from documentaries. They're familial. They hang out with each other and rear the cubs, but they also have a ferocity. So talk to me a little bit about that ferocity that lives inside you.
So, well, the ferocity is about maybe it's encapsulated in the notion of social justice, because that has to do with fundamental fairness. And fundamental fairness has certain assumptions behind it that deal with the value of humans, and the dedication to the fact that if you're working with anybody that's human, that's a precious life. And also, then, that fundamental fairness includes all people, not just the ones that have privileges. So, in the work that I have done, many of the students that I have worked with, most of them, come from very humble backgrounds in terms of their uh, family incomes. But they have a very rich cultural tradition in terms of their own ethnic identity. And that can be mined to produce a lot of insight for the curriculum as we go forward. So that value that we're giving to the individual, and that value that we now say we're going to protect, if I'm the lioness, for example, as the mentor, then what it does is it tells you that when an injustice has occurred, it's very important to use everything that you can to right that wrong.
I'd love to learn a little bit more about your work too, because the social justice work that's being done now truly was built on the foundation that you set over the last 40 years. I mean, you're one of the most influential people in the world for educational psychology. As the founder and executive director for the Institute for Transformative Education at San Diego State University. I would love to learn about the work. Of course, 4 decades is quite a span. It's very impressive. But maybe you could tie a bow on it for us of the kind of work and the kind of students you worked for.
Yeah, so the precursor to the Institute for Transformative Education was the Pre-College Institute. And I had to work very hard for 10 years to be able to get that institute approved by the university. And that was a real struggle. So when you have people that are working against you for whatever reasons, and I was so naive when I started, I had no idea people could work against you. I thought people would just support you if you were working for the benefit of students, right? But that isn't the way that happens. Okay, so given the fact that I'm the lioness, it could be I come across too strong for some people, and I don't always create friends or influencing people in the right way. So my work had to be, because of the grants and everything that I've been getting, positioned in such a way that the university would acknowledge it. And so that acknowledgement meant that I had to work very hard to get that Pre-College Institute supported and approved. And
Mm,
that is a whole chapter, just how to do that. Now,
yeah.
all the time that I'm getting that approved, the students don't care about that. What they care about is, are they learning something? What they care about is, are they doing something that's going to pay off in the long run? And how is it that you can help them to do that? So, my effort has been in all of these programs at the same time that I'm following whatever it is that's dictated by the federal government that you have to do, then I had to take that and reimagine it so that I did not fall sway to assumptions that the federal government had when they wrote these programs, uh, about the students, because the government's approach was deficit. We have all these students coming in with all these deficits. Now, if you work that way with students and you have the assumption that they all have deficits that have to be fixed, okay, you are taking away from the student, okay, the ability to find his or her or their own uh, don, we say in Spanish, but their their own sense of what it is their talent.
Mm.
So you want to help the students find their talent or their interest. And you won't be able to do that if you go very well, if you go from a deficit mindset. So, in the work that I've done, it's to not only myself, but everybody who works in the program needs to be able to adopt something that is a positive way of looking at students and what their potential is. Not that they have something wrong with them that needs to be fixed.
I'd
So,
love to learn more about this. It's fascinating because in comic books, a lot of times superheroes, like their superpowers kind of come from what somebody might call their deficits, you know? So there is a sense, I think, culturally that like from our trials and tribulations, from our challenges comes our power, you know? So with students, how do you kind of flip that? How do you move that from kind of a victim type mentality into like really utilizing our stories as being a source of power?
well, I think part of the thing that you do is you listen. So listening becomes very important. And we have had ways of getting students to write things down, reflections, at the end of the day. And we put students into small groups where they talk to each other with a near peer mentor. And in a living situation in residence halls that we had for Upward Bound for many years, students get to have that kind of relationship with a near peer, and they get to then talk to each other about their hopes, their dreams, and what it is that they really want to do. So, really sparking in students interest in who they are and then what they would like to do is important. And the other one is to instill in students a sense of giving back to their community. So that one of the things we want them to know is, well, you are getting trained and educated to do some leadership type things when you go into your profession. But whatever your profession is, what is the way that you can take what you have learned and give something back to your community? And now that gets into, well, let's talk about your community. What is your community? Where is your community? Who's in your orbit? All these things that are important for them to understand that they're not alone and that they shouldn't be working in a little cubicle if they want to be ready for the 21st century and they're living in the 21st century. So these are all the things that are blended together when and what some people they say it's layered, okay, And I would say maybe layering isn't the best metaphor because the layers have to talk to one another. Okay, and so if your layers don't talk to one another, you're in big shit problems. Okay, because you have to layer after layer. Layer is not a good metaphor. I got to figure out a better metaphor because it has to be blended so that it's integrated, totally integrated. All these layers have to talk to each other, or you're not really able to listen. Because as you're listening, as I'm listening to these students, listening, that means I put my own thoughts out of my head and really focusing on, well, what is the student saying? And how what do I know now about that student in the way that they think? So the other thing that I do and that I've learned to do is in working with students individually and in small groups is I need to I am interested in knowing how you think. So when you say that to a student, I'm interested in knowing how you think. That is maybe something that no teacher has ever said to them before, and is an important part of understanding who the teacher is. Now, what I'm hoping is, and what I hope my staff also gets, is that as you help, as you ask students, I want to know how you think, they're going to start thinking about how they think. All right, so so being able to think about how you think is a psychological process. It's called, in the language of psychology, metacognitive skill. So when you think about how you think, you're thinking metacognitively. So now that's a layer above what we usually do even when we reflect. We think, but when we are reflexive, then we're thinking about how we think, and that's metacognitive. So I think that's also a very important part of what I have done everything I can do to work with staff that work with students as well. And now I do a lot of teacher education right now. I'm teaching two classes. One has to do with service learning and working with potential teachers who want to go into education and helping them to reflect on what they're doing. So that's what we're doing.
I love that the insight to listen to students. My daughter is a sophomore in college. And the one thing that you kind of learn your freshman year is in college, the gloves kind of come off. You're expected a higher level of thinking and metacognition, like you were describing. How do you walk the line between honoring a student's choices and their voice when they're talking to you, and then challenging that?
Well, if you're listening, okay, and you're listening to what they're saying, then you have the ability to, at the appropriate time, ask a question. So you have to know what kind of question you should ask. That might be the challenge. And so, and then you have to ask the question, it has to be put in a certain way so that you don't imply to the student that you're expecting a certain answer. So the question needs to be an open ended kind of question most of the time so that you don't bind the student into an answer that's not his or hers because they want to give you the answer they think you expect. So, you see, these are very complex skills that a lot of beginning teachers, young adults who want to be teachers, they don't have these skills, okay, because they haven't been brought up in a school system that allows for that kind of way of thinking. And so, just getting fledgling teachers, okay, to stop and listen and not think that they have to lecture. Yeah, I got a couple of students this time last semester. Oh my God. You could not keep those people from lecturing. I said, well, okay, look at what happened here. I mean, this was all a lecture that you gave when you did your practice thing. You all lecture, all blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and then I had to say in a very careful way, and not only that, you lost the main idea in your lecture.
Yeah.
But you can't say it that way, okay? Because that's too harsh. The only way you would say it that way is if you've tried everything else, and you will need to get the person's attention. So I think in terms of, my career, it has been really to learn how, with the help of others, by the way, with the help of consultants, because sometimes I wasn't able to do this all by myself. And you have to know when you can't do it all by yourself. So you have to think to yourself, okay, I've done my reflection, I've done my reflexivity, but now I need to know how to do XYZ. But guess what? I can't go back and get another PhD. I don't have time for that. How am I going to learn the next step? So then that comes with then being able to locate someone that can be a consultant for you. I call it consultant in the way that, I work with these programs so I can hire consultants. So, getting in your own professional trajectory, knowing when you need a consultant is really important. Now, in my position as the head of the organization, it would not be a very good idea for me to try to use one of my subordinates as the as the sounding board for that. I mean, I can listen to what the subordinates say, but for me to be able now to go the next step in terms of the next things I need to learn, then the consultant, I have to have somebody outside the organization to do this. And I had to know that. And I don't know how I knew that, but I knew that.
Yeah.
And it was from experiences, I think, that I knew that it was not a good idea to try to develop myself in terms of next steps when I knew I needed help, to do it with someone within the organization as a guide, because that gets into what we call chismes, and you don't want that. Okay,
Yeah.
so chismes, for people who don't know what that is, it's rumors. Okay, it's talking blah 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 amongst themselves. Well, they're going to do that anyway, your staff. Okay, so but you don't want to give them food for it. Okay, so that's the other thing. So I am really talking to you from the perspective of someone who also has the responsibility of running a whole organization with lots and lots of people in them, and lots of personalities that have to come together as a team to be able to run our summer schools. So all of those things are important for someone who is in a leadership position, for example, and has responsibilities to supervise others. That's
Right.
a part of it too, and that's a part of uh, professional trajectory, that you learn how to do that. And if you don't know how to do that, you have to get a consultant if you think you need to learn it. But if you don't need to learn it, then you have to hire somebody who can do it for you.
Yeah.
And you have to know who to hire and how to hire them. Oh, listen, how to hire people? Oh my gosh. So that's a whole thing in and of itself. That's a whole bunch of skills right there. How to hire people and not make mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes.
I believe it, but I know you got a lot of wins too, and I'd love to know
Oh
about
yeah.
some of
Yeah.
these transformations. If we go back to 1983 when you founded the department,
Yeah.
what is different now as far as transformational education, and what challenges remain the same?
Okay, so what's different right now is uh smartphones and connection with the internet. using smartphones. Now, that is difficult to get people's attention. So, just managing how students are using their smartphones. So we say to them, you can't have smartphones when you come for your 4 or 5 weeks here. You can't have smartphones. You can have them after a certain period of, after a certain time frame, but during the day you can't have smartphones. You have to give it to us. We'll put your name on it and we'll give it back to you when you can have them, but you can't have smartphones.
It seems
Now,
better.
now that's, we have a controlled environment there. And in that case, if you're coming to our program and it's free and you get free meals and you get a lot of stuff, okay, then no smartphones. Okay, so managing the smartphones. So my daughter's a teacher also. She will not allow smartphones. She's an advanced placement Spanish teacher. She
Great.
will not have smartphones.
Yeah.
She said, you folks have to listen and you have to talk. She does everything in Spanish for English speakers. And everything in Spanish. It's immersion. She knows how to do it. Not many people do. So she's become a really terrific teacher at that. But she can't have them being really participating if they're on their smartphones. So smartphones have to go in a little pocket. Now, some students are so attached to their smartphones. It's like if you take it away from it, it's like you're cutting off their arm. They really think that smartphone is a part of who they are. And you take away that smartphone, man, and it's like you've taken their arm away. And they will fight like crazy to keep that blessed start. Now, see, that's a big challenge we have from 1983. We didn't have that challenge in 1983.
Yeah.
And so things have changed enormously with the advent of smartphones. Not
Yeah.
just the flip phones, that wasn't it. It's the smartphones that will do everything for you, you think, as well as be, becoming addicted to them. So
Yeah.
we have an addiction problem with the society as a whole, not only students. I mean, you
Right.
go somewhere and people are at dinner, and what do? They're on their smartphones instead of talking to one another. So blessed be smartphones. So for this one, it's not on even. Okay, I don't want to hear from anybody. All right, when I'm doing this, and that's the discipline that we have to help our students understand is how do they free themselves from their addiction to the smartphones. Now I don't
Yeah.
call it addiction, okay? I don't call it that. But but it has to be dealt with, particularly with adolescents. And now we know we have a lot of information now and research on the fact that this addiction to the smartphones has very deleterious effects on children's growth.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine they go to bed with the blessed things, and so, and they're not getting any sleep. Okay, now sleep is absolutely. When I told you, the core of the curriculum should be health, then people have to understand you have to get your sleep. You
Yeah.
don't get your
100%.
sleep, your brain won't won't start developing. You got to get your sleep. That's a healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
I
yeah,
fear for my own addiction to smartphones as well.
yeah.
um,
Well, they're very useful, but then one has to realize that they're also uh, can be so addictive that we we forget the people that we should be talking to on a regular basis, face to face.
yeah.
So I have a class online, and I also have a class um, face to face. And so with face to face, there are certain guidelines that we have about when you can use your smartphones.
Yeah. Okay, Cynthia, we are ready to enter the lightning round. Are you ready for the lightning
Okay.
round?
All right.
All right. Now, you're famously headquartered in beautiful San Diego, California, but I know
Yeah.
international travel has meant a lot to your life and your career. What have you learned from working abroad?
Okay, so I let me preface this by saying that working abroad is so enlightening that I encourage all my students to do at least one semester abroad. And so I was privileged to have my senior year in uh, Germany. And I went to an American school in Germany. And then I went to um, another school for that was German. Okay, so I had at least 2 weeks in a German school with German students, and that was so enlightening because I also traveled all over Germany with my mom, and and learned a lot of the things that were going on, geography, as important. But then I also went to places like Belgium and all over Europe, so I got a good sense of the European way of being. And since then, I have also done a number of study trips to Eastern Europe that I hadn't been to, and other places like that. My professional life has taken me to Holland, and one of my organizations, the Council for Opportunity in Education, sponsored me and certain other people that also are very well known in education to go there and to help them with how it is that they were working with their uh, with their non what can I put how can I put this with their residents that were from other countries but were now citizens. And that was complicated by the fact that many of these residents and citizens in Holland were not Christians. They came from Islamic faith. And the Islamic groups wanted to keep everybody in a little cubicle, okay, in a little section of the city and not really integrate with anybody else. Okay, and so how are they going to work that for students who were coming to the university that came from these backgrounds? So that was part of what we were doing when we were working a couple of years in Holland. And then I also had the opportunity with that same organization that sponsored me to go to North Africa for 2 weeks. Now, that was in Morocco. And what we were looking at there was the capabilities and the opportunities for students from the United States to be able to go to Morocco and study there. So that was uh, another foray into what it would be like to be in North Africa. And so, particularly in Morocco. And I had a wonderful opportunity to meet linguists there that were working on preserving the Berber language. So, a lot of people don't realize that the indigenous people in Morocco are Berbers and they have their own language. And so we had a lot of discussions on how it is that you can preserve ethnic languages that are indigenous to certain countries. So we worked on that as well. And so I've had experience working on that too. So
Amazing.
and that's more prevalent than we know. Uh, because when the Saracens came into North Africa, uh, many years ago, because realized that the Saracens were in Spain for almost 1,000 years, almost 1,000 years, 900 and some years. So they left a trail, okay, but it's not as big of a trail as I thought it might be. Okay? And so certain indigenous things come to the fore then. And how does that work? So these are the complexities of working in foreign countries.
Love it.
Yeah, and
Um,
learning about it, because there's so much movement now of populations that every single country now has to deal with this immigration situation. And how do you do that? And,
yeah,
you know, this uh, the administration right now, their solution is just to tell everybody to go back home. So, or worse. So that is not what I would call a very humane way of handling the situation. And
sure.
in Holland, they really, wanted to try to see what they could do in their universities to incorporate these students that had been from Islamic communities into the university community, to integrate them. And that's what we've had to do here at San Diego State University too, because we live on a border. So I didn't even talk about all the forays into Mexico, because I've taught in Mexican universities as well, okay, and in Spanish, okay, and having uh, to to work with uh, Mexicans, okay, who were also wanted to get advanced degrees, and I would go and teach in the universities over there in Mexico. Now, I also had a sojourn in Colombia, South America, twice. Once on the coast in a place called Cartagena, okay, and so I was there and I was teaching elementary school students. And then later on, after I got my master's degree, I went back to Colombia, to the capital, and I taught in two universities over there. And I taught linguistics. And interestingly enough, some of my students in the linguistics class were the parents of some of my kids that I had when I was in Cartagena. It was really interesting.
Wow.
So, and I could tell, because here everybody was speaking in the language of Bogota, which is very Castilian. Okay, and then this lady starts talking, and I start hearing, oh, this is Costeña. And the way she pronounced her N's and all of that and all that. So I looked and I said, I think I know you. And so that was really an interesting thing to happen. Uh, so I have had experience teaching in universities because I just happened to be there and I happened to be able to contribute. And so Colombia, South America, was there twice, learned a whole lot of things about Colombia. The second time I was there, my husband was also working on a dissertation, and that dissertation turned into a book, by the way. So he did very well on that. So that's a little bit about what it means to go to these foreign countries and be able to contribute something to them, and at the same time learn so many things about what you need to know to be successful living in that country. Unless, of course, you just stay with your English speaking friends all the time. Well, I wasn't doing that. So I really needed to know, oh, how is it that you can go and when they tell you you have to pay a certain amount for your electricity, but that's not right. How do you negotiate that? So negotiation is also another big skill. And when you work with people, negotiating is a very important part of it. And
Yeah,
negotiating with students too, because they don't always want to do what you tell them.
100%.
Sometimes they have a good reason. So
Oh,
negotiation also is important.
yeah. Cynthia, this has been wonderful. I was hoping I could get a personal recommendation.
Absolutely. Are you
Yeah.
on are you on are you on LinkedIn?
I most certainly am. Now,
Well, I'll look you up on LinkedIn.
okay. Well, I
And
want
I'll
to. I
say,
have a specific recommendation I'm looking for. Now, San Diego happens to be one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth, and I find myself there rather frequently. What's a good spot? What's the best spot for brunch?
The best spot for brunch. Oh my goodness. Well, I like the Brigantine.
The Brigantine. Okay.
Yes, but I like the Brigantine that's not exactly. It's in La Mesa, the Brigantine that I like. And there's
Cool.
several different Brigantines, but this particular one is really good for brunch. Now, I don't know all the names of the watering holes where the San Diego professionals hang out. Okay, but I can find that out and send it to you. So if you want to go to a place, like that,
I'll
um,
do it.
and then on a certain day, they hang out at a certain place for brunch. The elites of San Diego in terms of who runs it. So I
Oh,
know it exists. I just don't know where they go.
I love it. I
But
love it.
so
Cynthia,
you
we're running up on time a little bit, and I want to be very respectful of your time. This has been absolutely wonderful. If people want to learn more about your work or connect with you online, is LinkedIn the best place for them to do that?
Yes, LinkedIn is the best place.
Fantastic.
LinkedIn
We will,
is the best place. I'm right there. There's no getting around it.
cool. And we'll link that in the show notes. Dr. Cynthia Park, the Lioness. Thank you so much for this
Yeah,
conversation.
you're welcome.